And Jay, your work focuses on empowering leaders to develop clear strategies and systems. What do you believe is the most critical element of effective leadership in today's fast-paced business environment?
I actually have what I call the 99-1 system that I use, okay? And when I was 13, my goal was to basically join the military and go to one of the military academies. But I had one thing you got to understand. In the military, you can't give people pay raises. You can't give them time off because you're underway for months on end, right? All these different things that you can't do, so you truly learn how, And when 9/11 hit, Congress passed what's called the Check 21 Act, and it made any document or a picture of a check, illegal tender.
Can you share a success story where you helped the team realign and achieve transformational results?
The thing is, if you don't go out there and engage with your people, you're going to lose them, period. There's a reason you hired them. If you don't trust them, you hired the wrong people, period. I don't care.
What are some practical steps leaders can take to improve communication and teamwork within their organization?
I mean, there's many ways to do it. It's just not an 8 to 5 alignment, It's make sure that you are setting the stage for success. Not, one of the things that we have lost or that has become more of a challenge with the smartphones that we walk around with right now comes down to
Welcome to the 2025 Season 2 premiere of Boardsi Leadership Talks podcast. I'm your host, Martin Rowinski, and the CEO of Boardsi, and I couldn't be more thrilled to kick off the year with a remarkable guest, Jay Patterson. Jay is the founder of the Wolfpack Leadership Academy and a business growth architect who has spent nearly a decade empowering visionary leaders to scale their impact. As a sought-after speaker, coach, and entrepreneur, Jay specializes in transforming leadership systems and strategies to unlock potential, improve team dynamics, and drive meaningful results. In today's episode, we'll dive into Jay's proven framework for aligning teams, overcoming adversity, and building sustainable growth strategies. Whether you're leading a company, a team, or even aspiring to, this conversation is packed with insights to elevate your leadership game. Let's jump in. Jay, you ready?
I sure am. And well, I thank you for having me on, Martin.
Absolutely. Excited to hear some of the responses I got lined up for you. And we're going to kick it off with vision and leadership. And Jay, your work focuses on empowering leaders to develop clear strategies and systems. What do you believe is the most critical element of effective leadership in today's fast-paced business environment?
Well, when you sit down and look at things, I believe it's truly focus and resilience to maintain focus. Okay. So, because again, we all know what the Pareto principle is. Let's take something this big and shrink it down and really, corner what we want to do. But I take that further. Okay. I actually have what I call the 99-1 system that I use. Okay. And it's basically getting you from that 50-50 to the 80-20 to the 90-10 to the 99-1. And I rode submarines. Okay. So you had to do 100. There was no option. It's up and for submarines, it's down and up. For airplanes, it's up and down. It's even numbers. So our goal is to hit 100. But you know what? I call it the 99-1 just because. And again, the entire idea is, how do we get people, leaders or those that work for you, the employees, how do we get them to that spot so everybody understands what they should really focus on? What moves that dial, not that, not being out there spending dollars to save pennies. So that's what I do.
That's awesome. And before I dive into the next question, I'm curious, how did you come to where you're at right now? What was your journey like, your personal journey?
Oh, that's a loaded question, Martin. You never know what'll happen when you get people on a call, right? So I'm actually from North Dakota. For most people, that's Southern Canada. Okay. For me, it was the U.S., right? I grew up there. I was a cops kid and farming community, et cetera. And when I was 13, my goal was to basically join the military and go to one of the military academies. But I had a side direction. I ended up getting arrested for numerous counts of grand theft auto at the age of 13. So kind of blew everything out of the water. I still joined the Navy, but I went in to submarines at the age of 17. It was either A, go to the Hard Rock Hotel, or B, join the military and make something of my life. And the military, again, it's people might think it's very stringent and boxed in. You never reach out of the box, but truly, you really have to think on your feet. You have rules or requirements you have to follow, but at the same time, what was it? Patton said, you can plan for war, but the plan just goes out the window once the war starts or the battle. And it's the same way in the military. And one thing you got to understand in the military, you can't give people pay raises. You can't give them time off because you're underway for months on end, right? All these different things that you can't do. So you truly learn how, I'll say how to inspire people versus you can't motivate them, but you can inspire them. So it's key to understand those key parts of how to get them and yourself to focus on what is required, of course. So I retired from the military and I went into the civilian world. My first stop was at a company that got relocated to Mexico and to Ireland. And they said, "Do you want to move?" I said, "No, I'm done. No." So I went back to being a technician because that was my base. My education is electronic engineering, repair, things of that sort, right? But, you know, less than a year after joining another company, I was doing their installations for 3 states and managing the installation team. And then another company that wanted to grow into working on bank equipment, et cetera, reached out to me and said, "Hey, will you come work for us?" Well, back to your original question, how did I get where I'm at? Well, everybody remembers 9/11. Martin, how many checks do you write a week? Regular checks. Do you write any?
Too many checks.
Anyhow, basically, the equipment we worked on was check equipment. And what we did was anything that would process a check, we actually worked on as a company. And when 9/11 hit, Congress passed what's called the Check 21 Act, and it made any document or a picture of a check, illegal tender. So what happened is our business ended up having to recreate itself. Okay, 100% recreate itself. So what we ended up doing without any investment is we turned our business around from working on check equipment over to working on anything in a bank, and then it expanded from that. So it took us about 10 years. We positioned the company to sell, and during that same time frame, you didn't know if you're going to get paid. You didn't know, how are we going to order parts for this stuff? I mean, you had to deal with vendor issues. You had to deal with people issues because, not only were we dealing with that problem, reinventing ourselves, but we were also, that was in 2007, 2008, and what happened? The Great Recession, right? So,
Yeah.
so we ended up battling through all that. 2015 rolled around, company sold, PE firm bought it. I ended up moving on and doing consulting and contracting work. And later on, I went to IBM, similar situation where they wanted to bring back ATM service to the U.S. And needless to say, our cost structure wouldn't support it. So I ended up working with companies like Cisco and Apple, things like that, where we were getting them to focus on what their core competencies were, right? And lastly, again, I left there to go work for a company that wanted to position themselves to sell, and then COVID hit. And we were operating with 70% of the people. We were an essential business, but our sales were at about 150% of budget. So we sold the company at that point, and I've been doing contract work, working with smaller companies, et cetera, for the last few years again, after I left there. So, but that's normal, PE firm buys a company, they bring in their own management team, and,
Yep.
You've pretty much positioned it where it needs to be, and then you move on. And in fact, they asked me to come back, and I'm doing contract work for them also right now, as they bought more companies. So I'm involved in M&A, turnarounds, companies that are growth minded. It's different areas that I've spent quite a bit of time in. So I guess that was a long story, but a short story. I could go longer, but yeah, that's how I got where I am right now.
That's awesome. And obviously, you're no stranger to overcoming challenges, from what I hear. You've worked with businesses facing complex challenges. You described some of them a little bit: miscommunication and burnout. Can you share a success story where you helped the team realign and achieve transformational results?
I think that's been on quite a few occasions, but I think the biggest one was the first company that I was talking about, where our cheese was moved big time. You know, it's like we were only a $50 million company at that point. Okay, not major, not small, but $50 million company, and our revenue dropped 25% a year, and we had nothing to replace it with. And the thing is, the technicians we had were used to working indoors. Well, where are our ATMs? Some are indoors, but where are they? Outdoors, working on drive up equipment, working on different things. So number one, I mean, you had to get everybody on board, you know. And how do you do it? Basically, I've got a couple philosophies, or I've got many philosophies, but I try to concentrate. I have what is called my alphabet methodology. Okay, so and I know that sounds strange, but systems are systems, right? It works. But like the first thing I always look at is like the four P's. I look at that and I go, number one, you got to have the right people or take care of your people, retain your people, etc. Number two, what's your product? Do people want to sell it? Like I said earlier, we're losing customers, 25% of our customers a year because we're working on the wrong product. So we had to reinvent ourselves to work on the right product and then keep everybody there and then process, again, you got to have the processes in place. Are they too cumbersome? I mean, keep it simple, silly, right? You know, and lastly, priority, which, and it's getting everybody not only down in the trenches, because I ran operations and numerous other areas, but it was not only keeping them going, but also keeping everybody aligned up above. It's like that balancing act of, yes, we can do this, or we can do this, or we can do this, but trying to be where everybody's on page. So, back to your original question, it is truly, it is communication. I mean, it's over communicating it, but it's also focusing on what you need to focus on, you know. But on the communication side, that there I roll into my four E's. If you don't go out there and engage with your people, you're going to lose them. Period. Okay. If you don't empathize with them, understand what they like, understand what they don't like. I always carry a notebook around in my paper, in my pocket, because as you get older, you become a little more Swiss cheesy, right, on remembering stuff. So it's like, write it down. Okay. When you get out of earshot, write it down. Empower them. Let them do their job. There's a reason you hired them. If you don't trust them, you hired the wrong people. Period. I don't care. That is number one, because I am not the smartest person on the block. I love to surround myself with smart people and let them do what they need to do. But you got to empower them to do it and encourage them. Guess what? They're going to fail. If you jump on them with both feet when they fail, you've just undid everything that you've worked on. So it's you know, so the turnaround was taking a company that was bleeding, had significant excess inventory that was now no good to us, right? Because our business had changed. A different entire window of type of customer that we're working with, or different different types of equipment, and you know, again, putting all those pieces together, and you know, being okay to step back a little. It's if you're taking two steps forward and one step back, you're still making progress. And making sure people are aware of that too. It's just I've always believed baby steps are what counts. It's not those large changes. It's all those little incremental changes that you can do. Does that
Yeah,
answer your question?
absolutely. And it actually lines up with the next question I have, which is team dynamics. You emphasize aligning teams and creating efficient collaboration. What are some practical steps leaders can take to improve exactly what we just talked about, which is communication and teamwork within their organization?
I think again, for aligning, the team dynamics. I mean, there's many ways to do it. It's just not an 8 to 5 alignment. It's I mean, I can go into a number of different ways, but I mean, it's taken the time. I mean, I had over 400 people out in the field. Okay, that they were all remote technicians, and then you had your management coming up, and then as a company, in that situation, we were all separated anyhow. We had a corporate location, but everybody was remote pretty much. Back before remote was cool, right? And Uh, I think it comes down to, you've got to make the most when you guys are together or when you're talking. Okay, it's you know, it can be something. Well, I'll put it this way: I don't like to go to Perkins anymore. Okay, because everybody that I would visit would go, "Let's go to Perkins and eat," and you'd go out with them to talk and find out what's going on, understand what their challenges are, etc. So if I have a choice, I do not go to Perkins, even though they now have a drink menu, but still, I won't go to Perkins. But it comes down to, back when I was saying, when you engage with people, it's the same thing with leaders above you and below you. I mean, your leadership below you, your leadership above you. You got to do the same. You got to engage with them and understand, what is their strategy? What tactics do they think should be taken? Everybody's got an input into it, but when you said it earlier when you're talking communication, it's still the same thing. But
Yeah.
blending in some fun with it, blending in some non-business stuff, throwing, yeah, again, on submarines, we did barbecues. If we were in port, heck, if we were surface, we'd do, out in the middle of the ocean, we'd do a barbecue and do a swim call if we could. Okay. It sounds crazy, but we did. We had a barbecuer that we could throw up topside. You're sitting there sloshing around, but it's the same thing, working with people in a company. It's make it a little bit of fun, not just 8 to 5 grind, let's have some fun doing it. Bring in something, a lot of places I've worked, we've been the most overfed people in the world. Okay. Bringing in donuts on Friday or whatever. But I mean, it's just those little things that matter too. It's not good for your medical rates, but hey, it still works. But I really believe it comes down to making it a fun environment for people no matter what, you know, and that's tough to do, especially in today's, new norm.
Yeah. Remote work. As a business growth partner, you help leaders scale their impact. What common mistakes do you see leaders making during periods of rapid growth, and how can they avoid them?
Well, I think you can throw that both ways. It's either rapid growth or when you're seeing challenges. Okay. A lot of times, number one, you know, for rapid growth, back to products on the 4 Ps. What are you selling? What are you doing for them? Don't spread it out too much. It's again, what is your core competency? And I see that too often where it's like, hey, we're good at this, this, and this. Let's add this to it also and see what happens. But you don't have personnel that can handle it or processes that can handle it. So if you're going to do that, it comes down to making certain that you have put the right processes in place. If we're going to do this, we got to have the right people to do it because again, depending on what you're working on or selling, the people that you already have may not be the correct people for it. Can you train them? Can you not train them? And I think give it time too. It's just making sure that everything's established. You can't. It's not paralysis by analysis. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is make sure that you are setting the stage for success, not you know, just, hey, I got this great idea. Let's start doing this tomorrow and see what happens. But there's nothing behind, and then you wonder, everybody's like, oh, the first thing everybody does when they hear that from, when they do the next operations meeting or sales meeting is, well, we're going that way again, you know, and so that's why I say I think it comes down to making sure you have a clear vision to build that strategy on, and is it in your mission, right? Is it in your mission?
Yeah.
Or is your mission now different? And then, of course, it's like, okay, so what's our timeline to do it? And what do we expect as we go along the way? And what are we going to do if we run into roadblocks? And if we do run into roadblocks, how are we going to address them? Not overreact to it. Because again, I've seen where you bring out a new policy too, and people will sit down and, well, it's not making as much money, but we invested this much. Well, we've only given it 6 months, but so we start bleeding, and people want us, to save pennies, they'll spend dollars on it. They'll start, well, let's add this, let's add that, let's add this, and now you're even further underwater. So I think it's a combination of things, but I think really and truly it does come down to very clear communication and a very clear vision, and back to communication, back and forth, you know, and updating and making sure everybody's part of that team that's implementing it.
Absolutely. And with the Wolfpack Leadership Academy, you're obviously shaping the next generation of leaders, which everyone should appreciate. what's one piece of advice you'd give to emerging leaders looking to make a lasting impact in their industry?
I I believe that truly one of the things that we have lost or that has become more of a challenge with, with the smartphones that we walk around with right now comes down to engagement. I really believe if there's anything we can do to change the trend, it's going out there and being more than just a person in an office, being more than somebody that sends out email, it being more, all these different things. It's be involved. And I don't care where it is during COVID. We had 20 some branches, 400 people out in the field. I visited 35 states during COVID. I drove everywhere, but we were an essential place, you know, and people need to understand that you care.
Yeah.
Okay. And you went out there, found out what their challenges were. You gave them much greater autonomy. I mean, that branch manager was a lot smarter than I was, right? He knows his problems. They're doing, at that point, we were doing both, we're selling B2B and we're selling, B2C. And the thing is, though, B2C takes a lot more time than B2B. So it was like, okay, so what can you do to concentrate the 70% of people that you currently have when you should have 100% to make sure you can take care of that core
Yeah.
business? And what they did is they set their own hours, for B2C so that we were taking care of the other customers. And that's why I think it's, but you don't know that unless you go out there or talk to them. And they have to share. They can't be afraid to share. And we see that too often, where people are afraid to share because, well, if I bring it up, then it's like somebody's cornering me or I'm cornering somebody else saying there's a better way to do it and they may not like it. So I really believe it is engagement and that just rolling from there, and growing them. I mean, that's part of engagement. That's part of the empowerment and in other things. But giving them that next place to go, okay? And that's back to, that's one of the reasons why I love working with, middle managers that are their first time they're middle managers or frontline managers, because normally what happens is, okay, you were a great salesperson, now you're a manager. Have a
Yeah.
good day. And in 2 weeks, 2 hours probably, "Well, why didn't you do this?" "Oh, I didn't know I had to," right? And I mean, basically thrown to the wolves, and we gotta remember that. We gotta work with people and make sure that they have somebody to go to talk to and go, "I gotta throw this against the wall of somebody," and listen to them. Don't and I'll go into that because that's one of my big pet peeves is when you go in to meet with somebody and they're doing emails, you know, and they're typing and multitasking is great, but when we start talking to people or try to build relationships, you can't be multitasking. There's times for that, but you've got to pay attention to people. I
Yeah.
hope that
And
answers the question, but that's been my thought.
no, yeah, and great salespeople don't automatically make great managers.
And beyond salespeople, that's why I say it's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's like if we don't give them the right tools, how do we expect them to succeed?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jay, I didn't say this earlier, but thank you for your service, first of all.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. One of my partners was a military as well, so definitely appreciate that. Freedom's not easy to keep, and America's freedom is pretty awesome. So gives us
That it
opportunities.
is.
Yeah.
Yep. We have a lot of
Um,
great people out there protecting us.
yeah, absolutely. Um, so to dig in, you had an opportunity to move to, you said Ireland?
Yes, I did. Ireland or Mexico?
Two great choices. If you had an
I would have
opportunity
picked
right,
Ireland.
yeah, I would too. If you had an opportunity right now to go somewhere, well, I guess first question would be, would you? And then if you could, where would it be?
Oh, wow. Yes, I would. I love travel. I mean, my wife and I have been married 38 years. Okay. We've been together maybe half of that. Okay. So what can I say? So but yes, I enjoy traveling. I enjoy working with different people, cultures, etc. You know, I would sit down and I would give you an English country because I love Ireland. I love Great Britain. Uh, but probably my favorite place. that we pulled into numerous times on submarine because there was a sub base in Sardinia in Italy. I love Italy. Okay,
Yeah.
I just it is a wonderful country. The people are so nice. And again, I mean, that's probably one place, but I'm open. I'm very open. I mean, I haven't. Well, on submarines, you don't visit a lot of ports. On fast attack submarines, you spend a lot of time poking holes in the water. So when they say join the Navy to see the world, well, we've seen the world all right through that little one hole, So, but I think, yeah, I would say probably Italy, Greece, right in that area. I love the Med. I think it's so beautiful.
Yeah, both of those areas are gorgeous. Some of my favorites. So, as we wrap up, Jay, how does the audience get hold of you? How do they learn about Wolfpack? Give us a little lay down on that.
I will. I just so everybody knows, my website is under revision right now, so I'm going to give you a couple ways to get a hold of me because nothing happens as quick as it used to happen. It seems at times. But number one, you can text me because that I find it funny. I heard the number and it's like 90% of the time, if you provide a text number, people will text you. Okay, if you don't, they may reach out to you. But my text number is 417-216-6546. And go ahead and type in GROW, GRO, and I'll send you something and I'll reach out to you. Or the other option is to reach out to my, I've got a email account that I'd love you to reach out to. If anything, it's called jayspeaking@gmail.com. So it's Jays, Jays, speaking@gmail.com. So either of those methods. Later on, I'll provide you an update on the website, but right now, that's where we're at.
Awesome. Thank you, Jay. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Martin. I do appreciate it.
Awesome.
And thank you, everybody, for listening in.
Thank you. And so, everybody, again, thanks for joining season 2 of Boardsi Leadership Talks. And we'll kick off 2025 with this and keep it moving. So, till next time. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to Leadership Talks. Don't forget to subscribe for more insightful conversations with industry leaders. Your support means a lot to us.